Boys, shall we start at the beginning? Shall we go back to... Well, why don't you talk to me about Tim Sherwood? Should we go into that for a little bit? How bad was it before Poch came in? And also, from my perspective, who else were you linked with managerial-wise at the time? Do you know... Can you remember? I mean, we can look it up.
Frank de Boer, I think, was
what a manager.
It was like the season before he went to Palace. It was Frank de Boer. I think...
Was Koeman about?
I think Ronald Koeman was Ronald Koeman replaced Poch at Southampton.
Yeah, I think you're right.
So I think Koeman was probably a manager that was banded about, but Frank de Boer is the one that sticks to mind, that comes to mind.
That would have been when he was probably still at Ajax, I think, because he managed Inter before Palace, failed dramatically at Inter, and then failed even more dramatically at Palace a few years later.
But Tim Sherwood, that was like
Tim Sherwood.
That was the ultimate kind of like banter era Tottenham, but like not in a way where like we were like, again, he finished 6th, and as he would say, his it was like 69% win ratio. It was like second to none. He had an amazing win ratio of us. And it's like he actually kind of weirdly galvanised the team a little bit. He got the best out of Adebayor. Like him and Adebayor had such a weird relationship where it was like, and actually, to be fair to him, he did give Harry Kane his chance. Like, I know people will kind of slander him for that, and it was, don't get me wrong, it was obviously Poch that properly nurtured him and gave him the platform. But Sherwood gave him his first initial chance.
Blocked his loan, didn't he?
Yeah.
Spurs, Daniel Levy really wanted to send him back out on loan, and Sherwood was like, no.
Also, there was like things with Sherwood's come out and spoken about it on podcasts and stuff, where our director of football at the time, Franco Baldini, we just signed Soldado for big money, obviously that summer, and Levy and Baldini were like massively pushing to play Soldado, and Sherwood was like, I don't want to. I want to play Harry Kane, and they were like, you've almost got to play him because he's the big money signing. But the backdrop to that kind of season, obviously, like we lost Bale in the summer. AVB was into his second season. AVB was okay in the first year.
I thought he had 2 seasons at Tottenham.
1.5. So he came in 12-13 after Redknapp left. We had that season where obviously Bale just put us on. Like we weren't very good. Bale just kind of put the team on his back.
Best player in the league.
He was that season. He won PFA Player of the Year and Young Player of the Year, I think, and nearly got the Golden Boot. Like just ridiculous how many last minute winners he'd score. And then he obviously went. We then brought in the 7 players. AVB got sacked by Christmas.
The famous 7.
AVB got sacked by Christmas. It was just bleak. Sherwood comes in around Christmas, kind of picks things up immediately. It then got a bit sour around March. Remember we lost to Chelsea at Stamford Bridge 4-0, and Sherwood was coming out and saying these players have got no gut, they don't want it, all this kind of stuff. He was wearing the gilet. And then things kind of, it was, I think we found out like a month before the season ended that he was going to leave because he was still technically the interim manager. Poch came in. I remember Poch, it was like, obviously he had a year at Southampton. He couldn't speak that great English either, so it was like you didn't really get that connection straight away with the manager. And again, Tottenham, we've been through so many managers and so many cycles. It was like, right, okay, let's see what happens here. We started the season pretty badly, actually. And I mean, Harry Kane kind of effectively saved Pochettino's job. Like we started okay. I remember we beat West Ham in the first game of the season where Dyer scored a last-minute winner. We had a couple of wins. Then things around October, November started to go a bit south, and then we had that game at Aston Villa away where Kane scored the free kick in the last minute. I think if Spurs didn't win that game, Poch probably would have been sacked. So Kane was getting a chance in the Europa League quite a lot.
I remember that.
He scored a hat-trick against...
and he went in goal, didn't he?
He went in goal. He scored
that pink kit.
And that was the game where Lamela scored that Rabona.
And
like, we were all just like, get him in the team. Like, it can't get much worse than this. Adebayor was such a weird player because it was like...
Palace legend.
We had him on loan for a season under Redknapp, and it was so clear that he was playing for a contract because he was so good. We signed him permanently the year after. Terrible. Then Sherwood is able to galvanise him. Great. Pochettino comes in. Crap. Again, like, just really bad. So we all like banging on the door, get Kane in. I think that Villa game really made Poch kind of go like, oh, okay, I've kind of got to do this to save my job. And then kind of things like turned up from there, really. And then Harry Kane just started scoring against absolutely everybody. But it was, it wasn't, he was very close to being sacked within like 3 months of his reign,
I remember it being a bit of like a, not maybe controversial is harsh, but a surprising appointment in some ways. Because he'd only had 1 season in the Prem, and he did really well. Southampton finished 8th, which is obviously amazing. But I remember it being a bit of a surprise that you went and got him in at the time. Yeah,
I think so. That's the thing with Spurs is like we've had so many new eras, new managers. You don't really know what direction we're going to kind of turn to. But we went for Poch. I remember we were linked with like that whole summer. We were linked with Jay Rodriguez and Morgan Schneidlin to try and take like a couple of players with us from Southampton. I really wanted both of them as well. I was like, we just didn't. But it was a bit of a surprising appointment, I'd say.
Yeah.
But again, I think we had a lot of younger players at the time as well.
We
And
tried the younger route with AVB, like the project route, and that didn't go
Yeah.
well. And then getting another one in that felt like that was a bit. I think maybe some people were a bit.
I think the best
annoyed
thing that
about
Poch did is that obviously the summer before we'd spent a load of money on a lot of fairly average players, apart from a couple of them which kind of became stalwarts of the Poch era, like Ericsson and Lamella mainly. But I think what he did really well was like, I remember there was an early League Cup game in Poch's first season where he gave Ryan Mason his first game. He scored against Nottingham Forest. Then Mason played in like the North London derby the weekend after. Nabil Bentaleb was also kind of brought through by Sherwood the year before. He was brilliant though.
Yeah,
for
was
Sherwood.
really
And
good.
like early Poch, it was like he went out with like Paulinho, Capu. Like, I don't want these guys. They're kind of just like,
Yeah.
they're like bad eggs, and just like, I want to go the youth route, kind of inject that. And I think that kind of afforded him a little bit more patience with the fans, but the results just weren't stacking up. But then when Kane actually fully came into the team, it kind of all just clicked together. And I think that's one thing with Spurs, and we've kind of got it at the moment as well a little bit, where it's like, we love bringing through these young players. Everyone kind of loves it. It's not just unique to us, but like when you've got a team that you feel like you can kind of be proud of, you can naturally give them a little bit more leeway. And when you see what he's actually trying to do, even though the results weren't there, he got away with it a little bit. But like after that Villa game, it kind of all just clicked together, and they all just like, I just went up a level really.
I'm already noticing the parallels between this. We spoke about Arsenal just then. This is so similar to what Rory said about Arteta when he first came in at
just
Arsenal.
kind of weeding out the bad eggs.
And get
Gotta
youth
do
in,
it, yeah.
and that gets people on side straight away. Maybe that's going to become like what is the blueprint of being a nearly men team?
Just coming in, getting rid of the rotten eggs, and then
got to the League Cup final. Lost to Chelsea.
Yep.
But that was a good Chelsea team, wasn't it? That was
very
like
good.
Mourinho, Chelsea.
They won the league the year before.
No, they won the league
that year,
year,
14-15,
yeah.
with Mourinho, and then I mean, that final we lost 2-0. Chelsea were just so much stronger than us, and I think there was a feeling in the fan base after that game that whilst it was painful, the signs were there of something really good to come.
Yeah.
And then obviously going into the next season, 15-16, challenging up there for the league title. But I remember that League Cup final. Everyone was like obviously upset, but there was kind of a feeling of positivity with that as well.
Again, like we had Mason and Bentaleb in midfield. We had Kane leading the line. It was like we just got beat by a better team. It was one of them. We gave it everything we could. That was kind of it, really. But yeah, it was, to get to a League Cup final in Poch's first season was kind of an achievement in itself. The European run that season was quite disappointing, but I think he was kind of trying to get to grips with balancing the squad. And ultimately, a lot of the players that were playing in the Europa League were kind of the players that he'd kind of trying to weed out, and not the team that he wanted to kind of build the foundations upon. I mean, there were so many amazing around that time, the League Cup final as well. The feeling was generally really positive because I think we went into it off the back of that North London derby where Kane scored, or like maybe a few weeks before Kane scored the brace to turn it around, and it was just like that to do it, even though it wasn't the strongest Arsenal team, and they were the team that we were kind of going up for fourth with again, like to turn it around, kind of, and put the team on his back from such a young age. Again, like I think it was Bentaleb like put the cross in for Kane as well. It's like no, it's again when you win a derby like that and it's spearheaded by your younger players, regardless of how strong Arsenal were or weren't at the time, it was just like, it was a really good feeling of just like, okay, this is going in the right direction. For sure. But yeah, it was a decent first season. We ended up finishing fifth. League Cup final loss. And it was like there was clearly something to build on.
Positivity was building at that point.
So the mood's pretty good despite the loss,
Yeah.
and you can see the youth. You trusted in Poch, and then you move into the 15-16 season.
Yeah.
How do you reflect on that season now? It's obviously the famous season that you're in a 2-horse race and finished third. But Leicester won the league, which obviously is all the headlines. That's all everyone really talks about when they think of that season. But how do you reflect on it as a season under? I mean, does it just feel like a massive missed opportunity?
I think a little bit, but I almost feel like it kind of probably feels like a missed opportunity in the same sense that when Arsenal had their first title race, again, it wasn't meant to happen.
So
I think there's more parallel.
I think
that
honestly, bang on to what Rory was talking about with Arsenal.
But they won't accept the Poch comparisons. That's the
I mean,
very similar.
Not to jump ahead, but 16-17 probably Spurs' best season. The following season, Arsenal had their best season.
Honestly, it is.
Also going to lose the Champions League final this year. Actually,
everything aligns. But the handball rules change actually, so they'll probably get away with that. But no, 15-16 was like it was fun. It was good. We sort of teed up what was to come the year before, where you felt like you were turning up to White Hart Lane and you felt like you could beat anyone. And like White Hart Lane always, like I said before about the Champions League, kind of always had that feel a little bit about it. And we had like good teams prior to this as well. But It was, it probably on reflection feels a bit like a missed opportunity, but it wasn't meant to. I don't think it was meant to happen. We weren't meant to be plunged into that title race. But
Dele and Sonny broke through that year as well. That was
Dele Alli's season, man. It was just like from early days. I remember he scored his first goal against Leicester away, like right at the start of the season, diving header. Son signed, and actually Son kind of underwhelmed in his first season as well. It was very difficult for him to kind of adapt, and actually the following summer he very nearly left. He very nearly went back to Germany. Poch like kind of convinced him to stay, and kind of the rest is history. He very nearly went back and started the following season like a house on fire. But that's something ultimately like it kind of looks back with heartbreak. But again, it was platforming. I think again, what's to come. It was just another kind of rung on the ladder to kind of building the team that we were trying to become.
As a neutral, like you look back on that season, Leicester win the league, and you obviously are happy for them.
Yeah.
As a Spurs fan, do you feel any happiness towards Leicester winning the league that year?
We don't. We don't like Leicester anyway as a fan base. There's always been I think obviously since that season, there's always been a weird thing with Leicester and Spurs where like they don't like us.
Yeah.
And I think Spurs fans differ in terms of their dislike towards Leicester. But like, I was in the away end at the game where Bergwijn scored in the 95th and 97th minute.
Wow.
And the atmosphere of that game was actually unreal for a game between two sides that like you wouldn't expect to be that bitter towards each other. But they just always had a thing against us since that season. I don't know if it's because, you know, the narratives in that season and we were going up against each other and there was that hatred that built from that point. But we don't love Leicester. I
remember the Jamie Vardy tweet when Chelsea
Vardy hates us as well. Like
when Chelsea stopped us winning the league, Vardy put the thing up of the Lion King where was like falling down the cliff. It was like because we were chasing them and it was like it was like again it's one of those seasons where it's like of course we're the ones that lose the title to Leicester. Anybody else, and it was like I think that's what made it painful. It was like again objectively for the Premier League, it's an amazing fairy tale story for someone like Leicester to go on and win it. But of course, we're the ones that end up being the butt of the joke. That's how it kind of felt. Like everyone was laughing at Tottenham, and even though again we were never the only time we were actually top that season was for 15 minutes when Harry Kane curled that ball into the top corner against Arsenal and threw the mask off. We went top of the league.
Did Arsenal equalise in that?
He should have saved it. They had 10 men as well.
I think I remember that.
Ramsey scored that little back heel. Then we turned it round. Coquelin, I think, got sent off, and we were like all over him. Kane scored the goal. That honestly, again, you speak about atmosphere. Like that is proper. Like makes the hairs stand up on you, like the back of your neck. It's just like amazing. But then that was the only time we were top. And then
Arsenal were top of the league that season for longer than Spurs were.
People forget about that. Again, they beat Leicester.
I remember that game and when Welbeck scored that header, and it was like, oh, Arsenal actually might. Leicester might.
Funny enough, that same day. Because I remember watching it on the coach up to Manchester. We beat City away.
Yes,
and where Harry Kane scored the penalty in like Harry Kane scored the pen and then Eriksen scored the winner in the last 10 minutes. It was on Valentine's Day actually.
I was in Barbados that day.
Was it? Very nice. It was. I was at the Etihad. It was like again but that was. I know Arsenal beaten Leicester, but it was like we can do this. It was like we just beaten City like away from home. It was like. I just remember Poch coming over to that away end with the players and it was like, we can actually do this. Leicester sort of slipped up. I know Arsenal, I think they went top off the back of that. But like you said, Arsenal were top for way longer than we were.
So is that narrative from 15-16 one of the most frustrating? That it's like Spurs bottled it, Leicester won the
second
league.
Third in a 2-horse race. And it's like, actually, Arsenal were there or thereabouts with us for a lot of that season. And obviously, they had the run at the end. We fell off at the end.
Yeah.
Obviously, had that terrible result on the final day.
I do think over time, like where Arsenal have gone, again, they've kind of become this nearly team and gone close so many times over the last few years. I feel like now time has passed, their fans are looking back on that season a little bit more and saying that's when we really should have won it.
Yeah.
Like you can kind of forgive yourselves a bit now because the strength of the Premier League and we've done a lot of everything we can to almost compete. And obviously you've got to ask questions of yourself as well. But like I think as time goes on, they look back at that season a lot more and say we should have done it.
Yeah.
So that kind of as time goes on, it does mend a little bit, but still, it wasn't really our one to bottle, but. It's again the classic thing of just having a laugh at Spurs, really.
Yeah,
I feel like we can't move on from that season without really addressing the Battle of the Bridge, though. I mean, as a neutral to the game, that's one of the best Premier League games I remember watching. In solo, it was like watching something from the 90s.
Yeah,
it was carnage.
I mean, how do you feel about it now? How did you feel at the time?
Terrible. It was just,
next question.
It was just awful. I mean, like, I remember, when it obviously just completely went to shit. Dembele gouging out, Diego Costa, like
right
Willian.
Half time, like we just lost our heads. It was like
Willian and Danny Rose. I remember that as well. Like,
who someone stamped on Fabregas. I think it was Kyle Walker.
Yeah, it was. Yeah.
And it was just, I don't even think like Hazard didn't even start the game.
Yeah, he came
either.
on. Yeah.
It was the same as the Cup semi-final the year after. It was like, yeah, well, no, we'll leave. And Hazard wasn't having a great season.
That was the
either.
season he was having the horror
Yeah.
season.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It was
and it was
a
like, of course, he comes on the
classic,
bench and
yeah.
wraps in like a worldie into the top
Yeah,
corner. It was
yeah.
like, I think that game. I think we did
bottled that game.
bottle that
100%.
game. Like, we did
yeah.
kind of lose our heads a bit too much, I think.
What do you
Yeah.
think? Do you think that was Spurs trying to be aggressive and went too far, or do you think it was just a collapse, like a mental collapse?
I think it was a
Mental
bit of
collapse.
both. I think it was a bit of both.
We hadn't been in that position before, going 2-0 up Stamford Bridge, and obviously Chelsea fans then got up for it. I think the aggro actually worked in Chelsea's favour
definitely did.
more than ours. I think we thought that, rather than maybe they get a man sent off or whatever, but
And it
we
worked. We
lost
were 2-0
our
up at half
heads.
time.
Yeah.
Like, it did kind of
that's
work.
probably the
Yeah.
youth of the team. Really,
Yeah.
you've got to
Yeah.
manage a game at that point. The
Yeah.
last thing you want to do is get into an altercation with a player and get the fans off their feet.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Just
exactly.
manage the game 2-0
Exactly.
boring.
Yeah, it lights it up a little bit. And I think that's exactly
Yeah.
what
So
it
it's
did.
probably
And
just a
then
bit of
100%.
they got one back. I think Gary Cahill scored. And it was like we were sitting on a 2-1 lead for like 30 minutes, and it was like, this does not feel good.
we all knew.
Oh,
we all knew what was
coming.
going
I
to
didn't
happen.
expect the dagger to be that severe, where Hazard literally wraps it into the top
It was an
corner like that.
unbelievable
Yeah.
goal
Did-
as well.
Did
like,
anyone get sent off in that game in the
No.
end?
No.
I think it was like the most yellow cards in Premier League history in a game without someone
16
getting sent
yellow
off, I think.
cards,
Is it
including
16
staff.
yellow
I
I think.
remember,
Yeah.
I remember Eric Dyer was on a yellow and just like hacked
Yeah.
one person,
Clattenburg.
and then just launched himself into Fabregas.
Yeah.
I was just like, how has he not been
I think-
booked again for that?
Yeah, I think it was Clattenburg who was the ref, and I think
Yeah,
he just
yeah.
kind of
Yeah.
let it. I think
Yeah.
he,
Yeah.
to his credit, actually, I think he just kind of like, this is what's happening. Just
Yeah.
like
Mate, it was like
go
a
for
game
each
of
other.
FIFA where you turn off fouls.
Yeah.
You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
yeah,
And
yeah.
you're playing with your brother or something,
Yeah,
just turn
it
off
was
all
nuts.
fouls.
Yeah,
Yeah,
did Dembele
unbelievable.
get punished
he
retrospectively?
got like an 8-game ban.
Yeah.
Or something. Yeah, he like
Yeah.
gouged Costa's eye. Like it was
Yeah.
a massive
Lucky
scuffle
VAR
right
wasn't
before
about
half-time.
in those
Yeah,
days.
yeah.
We'd have got about 4 red cards if VAR was
Yeah.
about in those days.
Yeah.
Like, we'd have been done.
Yeah,
like.
so true.
So then, going into the following season, obviously you'd come pretty close to the title.
Yeah.
Was the expectation to push for the title again? Do you think the following year? Because you didn't spend big money that summer. I think you signed Wanyama,
We signed
who
Wanyama.
obviously
Yeah.
was a big player for you
What
the
a
following
player.
year. But
Yeah.
Vincent Janssen.
of course, how could I
Replacing
forget
Soldado.
Yeah.
Vincent Janssen. But it didn't. I mean, from the outside looking in, it didn't look like Spurs were like, right, this is our opportunity to go and like push on and like actually go and win the league.
Yeah, I think it was a difficult one because I think a part of the reason that we didn't. Part of the reason that we didn't ever really kind of win anything during this period, and I think the difference between us and what Arsenal kind of are going through right now, even though the parallels are similar, I think the credit you have to give Arsenal is that they're giving everything they can in terms of giving the manager the best possible
Especially
chance.
this summer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Whereas like there's a we're going to talk about it later, but there's a transfer window in here where we don't sign a single player.
Which
we
is
didn't sign a
mad.
player for 18 months.
Yeah.
We were hamstrung a little bit financially by the move to the new stadium, which was imminent.
Yeah.
Obviously, that was the last season at White Hart Lane as well. So there's valid excuses there, but it wasn't. Yeah, we weren't building a squad that says title push. And I think the frustrating thing about Tottenham all throughout this period is that when you look how strong the core of that team was, for every kind of year, and it's kind of the same now, like we've had a bit of a mess of a transfer window, and I think the frustrating,
Yeah.
and we've got a similar manager in Frank that's like making us greater than the sum of our parts, really bringing through some young players, making us strong, aggressive, hard to beat, but also play good football, is that we're only like a couple of players away from doing something really serious, and I think it was the same thing throughout this kind of time, really. But the 16-17 one, yeah, like I said, we brought in Wanyama, Vincent Janssen. We were painfully in need of a backup striker, but
Yeah.
whenever we sign strikers,
He
it just
wasn't the
doesn't
one.
really
Yeah,
work
because
out.
they're not going to sit behind Kane.
Yeah,
are
they're
they?
not
No,
I mean-
exactly. Poch kind of tried playing them together for like the first
Yeah.
part of the season. It just didn't really work. Janssen was another one, a bit like Soldado, like worked his nuts off. Like to his credit, it just didn't click.
Yeah.
Let's rattle through some stats from that season because it is statistically mental. Really,
We were the best team in the league, by the way.
Yeah, I would actually agree with that. So you finished second with 86 points, which is your highest ever Premier League tally.
Yep.
Yeah.
You had the best attack in the league. You had the best defence in the league, statistically.
Yeah,
You went unbeaten at home for the entire season. You won
Yep.
12 of your last 13 to close the season out. You only lost 4 games all year,
yeah.
or all season.
It was not.
Why didn't you win the league?
Arsenal, funnily enough, at the Emirates when they were 3-0 up against Chelsea, Chelsea switched their back three.
Yeah.
That's what won them the
of
league.
course.
So it was
There's that
Arsenal
classic
again.
picture
Yeah.
of Marcus Alonso coming on and
Exactly.
going like
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
That is why we didn't win
So
it.
Arsenal lost Spurs the league again.
But again, it was very similar. Again, like the same, like Arsenal parallel from 23-24. We lost that game against West Ham away. I think Lanzini, like right at the end of the season, it was like we were still just right there with Chelsea. But it was
Yeah.
like, what would always happen was we'd always play like 12:30 on a Saturday, right, at White Hart Lane. We'd always be on telly, or we'd play the 1:30 game on a Sunday, and Chelsea would always be after us. And we'd win, and we'd have to then spend the weekend waiting for them to do it. It's like we've done our bit, but you always constantly feel like you're chasing. I remember there was one moment where I thought, okay, I remember Chelsea went and lost to Man United away at Old Trafford in like April. I think Rashford scored, and it was like there is actually a chance here.
Doors
They've slipped up,
open.
we've still won, and I think the
Yeah.
gap went to like 4 points maybe. And I think that's when that West Ham game did kill us the few weeks after. But again, it felt like very Tottenham. There were games that when we weren't playing so well in that run, I remember we beat Swansea away, scored 3 goals and added time to turn the game around. It was like
that Ericsson shimmy.
But I think the best thing about that game was the best thing about that season, is that, like I was kind of alluding to earlier, you would literally turn up to White Hart Lane every week and think we battered someone.
Yeah,
we were ridiculous.
When we played like Watford, Bournemouth, all these kind of teams, 4-0, 3-0, bang, like no problem, see you later. It was just a pleasure to go there every week with that arrogance of like, no, we're going to turn you over, like smash you. We won 17 out of 19 home games. We only dropped points to Liverpool and Leicester, I think it was.
That's mental.
It was I think it was again the best. I think, like I said, the year after when we got to play Real Madrid, like that's when kind of it all came to like the peak. But in terms of on a weekly basis, we were just so strong, aggressive. Like you said about Wanyama. Wanyama was colossal for us that season.
Yeah.
Absolutely unbelievable. Like Dembele as well, Eric Dyer. We kind of shifted between a back 4 and a back 3 quite a lot as well, depending on the opposition. Walker and Rose. Again, the Walker and Rose thing is actually a little bit of a myth, because
strange.
Like Walker kind of like towards the second half of the season made it abundantly clear that he didn't want to be there anymore.
Yeah.
And Poch kind of like pushed him to the side. Trippier got most of the chance.
Yeah.
Rose got injured in like the end of January. Davis played, but Davis was really good, and it was like all these players that were coming in. It was just like it was class. Like it just was great. But
we briefly touched on him earlier, but we can't not talk about Dele Alli when you speak of this era. And this season was probably his best run. I think he got 22 goals all competitions.
Yeah.
Young player of the year.
Do you think he almost like epitomised Spurs under Pochettino in terms, not just in terms of his rise, but mainly partly because of his fall as well?
100%. And it was the bravery, like Ben said earlier. It was the tenacity that he played with. Like obviously Pochettino's Tottenham, high press inside, intensity, our fitness. Like that's the fittest Spurs team I've ever seen in my life. Not in that way, but
and it was handsome guys in it.
Yeah,
that's part 2 of the podcast.
yeah. And Dele Alli was like, he just summed it all up. He was pretty much every fan's favourite player during those days as well.
Still is now as well, by the way.
Yeah. Well, like against Bodo, the home leg of our semi-final in the Europa League last year, we sung on the concourse about him for like half an hour beforehand. Like, I've never loved a player in the way that I loved him. I'd say at Spurs, like you love like Harry Kane and Sonny and stuff, but it was like, I don't know, it's such a weird thing with Dele. Like we just had such a different love for him as a fan base, and the goals he scored, but like Ben said, the important goals he scored, the important assists he got, like headers, volleys. Like, I mean, you remember the goal against Crystal Palace? Like he would just do, he would just do ridiculous things so often, and like I mean, when he fell off, that's really when Pochettino Spurs fell off as well, and it was kind of.
I think the biggest kind of part of it with Dele as well is that you kind of summed it up in terms of the bravery and the tenacity and the energy, but I think one thing that always makes a great team is like having a player that everybody else kind of, for the most part, dislikes because of the way they kind of. He was a bit nasty. Like he got himself sent off a couple of times by stupid things. He was a little bit loved getting involved in a bit of a scrap, and he was just like where he backed himself so much. It's a bit like Jude Bellingham. Like again, a lot of people like universally like Jude Bellingham for like no other reason other than the fact that he just is himself. And I think it was kind of the same with Dele. The fact that everybody kind of. He was horrible to play against. And we were horrible to play against as a team generally, but like he had that edge. I think everybody kind of, not everybody disliked him, but like when you play against the kind of rival teams, like people just didn't really like him that much. And I think having a player that everybody else hates that you absolutely love makes it even more special. I think that's kind of the sign of like these really good teams a little bit. He was amazing. It was just that classic running beyond Harry Kane. Like the relationship they had. Kane would drop that a little bit deeper. Dele scored so many goals like he did against Chelsea, just arriving late in the box. And
that's the misconception about Dele as well. People think he's like a number 10. He played as a second striker during that season. He was ridiculous.
And how important was White Hart Lane to the magic like of that season for you? Like being the last season there before you went to Wembley. Do you think that played a big part in that? I mean, obviously, it's played a part in the undefeated home run. Might have had something to do with it, but. Did you feel like moving to Wembley, like was that really probably the best chance to win like something, because you were there at Wembley for a year right after that?
2 years and a bit, basically like a year and a season and 3 quarters.
We'll get on to how badly that went, but the point of like White Hart Lane, like the memories of that. I mean, every game must have just been like it was literally the last.
It was quite emotional, it was. I think a lot of it was driven by emotion a little bit because it was such a special place to watch football. And I think any like
12th man, isn't it?
You have it really, it was, and it was so like I think that's one thing that we have been able to replicate with the new stadium a little bit is how close it kind of feels. I think White Hart Lane was quite unique in that aspect, but it did feel like
a bit like Goodison.
It's a subconscious like emotional thing of like you turn up every week knowing that like, you're one game less away from not being here anymore, and that Man United game, the last game there. was special. Like to beat, we won the game obviously and kind of
2-1,
kept that really strong home record intact. But like to say goodbye to it in the way that we did and just sign
pitch
off
invasion at the end.
Yeah.
That photo of Harry Kane's one of my favourite ever Tottenham
where he's
photos.
getting mobbed by the Spurs fans like going down the tunnel. It was like I said, like all throughout these kind of seasons and years that gone by, eras, Redknapp, Martin Yole as well. Like White Hart Lane was a notoriously tough place to go, but I think that probably did add a extra layer onto how hard it was to come to probably that season. Probably helped with home record.
100%.
Yeah, because we touched on it a little bit earlier, but speaking about Wembley moving into the 17-18 season, it wasn't great.
No, it was. The thing is, like I said earlier with Wembley, is that like that season again, we finished third. We did drop off a little bit. We had some great moments in the Champions League, and I think Wembley for that first year was fine because we thought that was going to be it. Like I said, we were supposed to move into the new stadium, literally the season after, from the start of 18-19, and then over that sort of summer, it started to get pushed back a little bit, and then pushed back again and again and again, and then we didn't end up moving in until like April of 2019. So that first season at Wembley was, like I said, it was fine because we thought it was just for one season, and we did have quite a lot of good moments there. But again, it wasn't. It obviously wasn't the same.
It does feel like a bit of a what if that era had continued, because I think our 17-18 team was still like so strong, and obviously our home record wasn't as good. If we'd stayed at White Hart Lane for that next season, you could argue would it have been as good in the 16-17 season, but. If we'd stayed there in 17-18, like we would have been better probably. But again,
like a bit of a disruption maybe.
Exactly.
I think part of the reason as well is that, like I said, it comes back to the way the club was kind of run off the pitch in terms of the recruitment. Because that summer we spent a little bit of money. We brought in Davinson Sanchez, who was actually our club record signing, I think, at the time.
And he was
really,
really good
that
first season. Yeah.
We brought in who else? Serge Aurier to replace Walker. We got decent money for Walker. But I think one thing that we didn't really do ever was that the first 11 on the pitch. We never really signed any proper competition for any of those players to kind of take them up a level. It was always about like filling out the squad a little bit and kind of making us a little bit stronger as a squad. But it was never like we didn't kick on and go, right, we've got Christian Eriksen here, we've got Dele Alli. They're great players, but if you don't, like Man United did the whole time, like with Fergie, I know it's totally different because they actually sustained an era of dominance. But one of the reasons they were able to do that was because they would go and put their own squad under pressure every year by signing players to properly compete with the squad that existed, and we never ever really did that. So I think that kind of partly contributed to our downfall. One of the reasons why it went stale is that we didn't. That first 11 was the first 11 for like 3 or 4 years, pretty much.
Yeah, you need to mix up a little bit, right?
Sonny's biggest competition was George Kevers and Kudu during that time.
I guess it's difficult when you have such good players in the team. We spoke about Kane earlier, and I know you said about playing Southampton in December and it being cold, but am I right in saying in the 17-18 season that Southampton game was when Kane broke?
Not the same game, but I know what game you're talking about.
So was that like peak? So Kane held the record for most goals scored in the calendar year. I think
he
it was
won the Golden
2017.
Shoe.
And that was obviously like arguably peak Ronaldo.
Yeah.
Not peak Messi, but he's still Messi.
Yeah.
And Kane outscored both of them over the course of a calendar year. Is that the best version of Harry Kane that you think
100%.
Spurs have ever had?
Goal scoring wise, like goal scoring wise,
under Mourinho probably.
2021 season, the season where he got the Golden Boot and the Playmaker Award. Yeah. That was the best version of a footballer since Gareth Bale that we had at Spurs, I think. But Harry Kane goal scoring wise, like pure goal scorer, because I think when we had like Dele Alli still in the 17-18 season, Eriksen, like there wasn't as much of a need for him to be more of a player than just a goal scorer, and like he was ruthless during those times, like 16-17, 17-18, like it was one chance, one goal every single game. And like that Southampton game, I remember where he broke it, that dink over whoever the Southampton keeper was.
I think it was Forster.
Yeah, I think it might be Forster.
And at that point,
it was on Boxing Day, I think.
Yeah, we had the best striker in the world at that point, I believe. Anyway, well, like Luis Suarez and stuff, obviously they're amazing, but I think at that very point, 17-18, 16-17. Harry Kane was the best striker in the world.
What's mental about that kind of calendar year as well is that he had that was around the time where Harry Kane would probably spend at least like 2 months out a season with his ankle problems. It was like that last. If you go back to the last season at White Hart Lane, there was a period for like 6 weeks where Son had to play up front. In Kane's absence, but we'd still just kind of carry on smashing teams. And then Kane kind of came back into the side. So Kane's injuries were kind of a fixture sort of throughout this as well. But like for him to break it in that calendar year where he did struggle fitness-wise as well
and he never scored in August either.
He broke it actually the following season. I remember we beat Fulham at Wembley and he cut in and bent it in the bottom corner, and that's when he kind of broke the duck. But like, 17-18 was we finished third. There was like a little bit of a drop off. We got to another FA Cup semi-final, which was actually like one thing we didn't touch on from 16-17 was the Chelsea FA Cup semi-final where I remember Jenas got killed
left
on
wing back.
Yeah, I remember Jermaine Jenas got killed on the BBC coverage for saying Spurs didn't deserve to lose.
Yeah,
and he was actually
true,
right.
by the way.
He was right, but the problem is they brought Hazard and Matic off Hazard off the bench, Costa off the bench. Hazard scored a great goal, and then Matic scored that worldie. But again, we played really well, and it was just we got beaten by again the better side that pipped us the league. I remember we played Man United in the FA Cup semi-final.
That was so painful.
This season,
Dele Alli's fortnight celebration.
If that was the season or not.
And also, like, I remember this is one thing that kind of held Poch back a little bit in terms of how he treated cup competitions. Like, he'd always play Michel Vorm in goal, and like even if we got to a cup semi-final, like it. And
Michel
I remember he let
Vorm
Herrera's shot go like straight through him. Like the year before, like you said, he played Son at
the
left wing
Norwich
back,
one,
and it was like
where he dropped the ball straight to the feet of whoever the Norwich striker was, and we lost on penalties, and he didn't get near any of them.
I was gonna ask about the cup competitions, because do you think if you'd won an FA Cup, for example, in that run, that would that change anything for you in the way you look back on that era?
I mean, where we hadn't won something for such a long time, anything would have changed it in those days. Like an FA Cup win, I mean, I feel like the fans always cared so much more than it felt like Pochettino cared about the cups. I mean, we had some horrors under. We lost to Colchester away on penalties. Right before he got sacked. Like, we had so many bad ones.
Palace beat Spurs in, that would have been the
15-16.
Yeah,
you beat us twice actually. You beat us. I remember you beat us at White Hart Lane. I think Joel Ward scored.
Oh, Martin Kelly scored.
Martin Kelly. No, I knew it was a fullback.
Martin Kelly banged it in the near post. And then only ever goal for Palace.
18-19. I remember Kieran Trippier missed a penalty.
Yeah.
So I was
Townsend
there for that.
scored one. Yeah.
Christ,
but I remember that season 15-16. Obviously, Leicester won the league, and there are some seasons where it's the time to go and win a trophy. Like, it's the time for the teams who maybe aren't in that top tier to go and win a trophy. And 15-16 felt like that, because I remember we played Spurs away, and it was like, Spurs should really be prioritising this. I think other teams got knocked out early. Palace ended up getting to the final. But the semi-final matchups were Palace versus Watford and Man United versus Everton. Spurs are better than all four.
We had to be there. It was always. I remember Kane would never start in those games. Like when you had like Vincent Janssen off the bench, or like Soldado or whatever, and we'd all just be waiting for Harry Kane to come on. Like, we'd always be thinking, if it's 0-0 or 1-0 down or whatever in those early rounds, and it just didn't feel like something Pochettino prioritised. And he spoke about it. He was like, it's the Premier League and the Champions League, the main focus. Daniel Levy's the same, because that's what obviously drives the revenue. So we were always bigger on having a Champions League run than having an FA Cup or a Carabao Cup run, which, you could argue got to the obviously Champions League final in 18-19. Would we have done that if we prioritised the other cup competitions as much? But and the squad as well, we never had as deep a squad. Like, our first 11 was amazing, but then our squad players, it was like, if we were in, changing Harry Kane out or Ericsson or whatever, we lost so much in those cup competitions.
Also, especially with like the intensity that we played with, like married up with quite a thin squad, that was just a bit of a recipe for disaster.
Exactly.
Also, I think when you kind of frame it in the context of like, when you're little, when you're growing up as like a Spurs fan, like your dad or whoever takes you to Spurs is like, in the 70s we won these cups, in the 80s we were a cup team. That's what Spurs were. We've only won the league twice, but we've always had a rich history in the FA Cup, the UEFA Cup, won that obviously 3 times now, the League Cup as well. We were traditionally a cup team. So I think being it, kind of having it framed in that context as well, because even like under Juande Ramos, where we were so bang average and mid-table in the league, we beat Chelsea in the League Cup final. We won a League Cup the couple of years after I was born, and obviously in the 90s we won the FA Cup for the final time. We haven't won it since, and like I said, we've had such a rich history in those competitions. So for Poch to kind of ignore that had its benefits in terms of pushing us so close to win the biggest things, but we were still craving a cup. And it's funny with Tottenham and cups, right, because it's become such a big thing. When you look at like Newcastle and Villa, for example, who
their fans, coming at some point.
Their fans want to drive themselves into these conversations about being a bigger club than us and all this kind of stuff, and replacing us in the Big Six or whatever. It's like, when was the last time, other than Newcastle this year, obviously, before that, they haven't won anything for absolutely ages, but it's always Tottenham. It's always Tottenham that are the ones that kind of get that stick beaten with about them. So it was nice to do that, obviously, this year, to kind of just shut people up a little bit. But it was disappointing to kind of neglect the competitions that we have such a rich history and that would have actually, like, I feel like people have had these conversations about around Arsenal now. I think I remember like you saying, other people have said it as well, like how much would an FA Cup or League Cup move the needle for Arsenal? probably not that much, even though
Yeah.
it would get people off Arteta's back a little bit.
They won so many in the mid-2010s as well.
And
like
also,
FA
like, they've
Cups and
won.
stuff,
You know,
so-
Arsenal have won the league like however many times. They've won the
Yeah.
Premier League like 3
Yeah.
times. They won Invincible in the league. They are one of the biggest clubs in England. Like, they should be aspiring to get back to that level. Whereas, like, for them, like you say, it wouldn't move the needle that much. But for Spurs, that would have done everything for us. And FA Cup would have done so much for
It's
Tottenham.
really
I think.
interesting. I was listening to you both talk about it. It's really interesting because I do think there would have had to have been a sacrifice, like, for these unbelievable league runs or the Champions League run. Like, you probably could have sacrificed it for a Carabao Cup.
Yeah.
So I'm really split. I don't know where I sit on. Would I want?
Well,
if I was in your shoes, would I want to give up some of those moments?
It always felt
for a cup,
like
I don't
when
know.
we got to like the FA Cup semi-finals or quarter-finals, it never felt like a priority. It was like kind of like, oh, we're here. And it's like, you know, are we going to go on and win it? Exactly.
That is frustrating. At that
semi-finals.
point, you want to turn it on. You want
Yeah,
to
and it's
we're here
like-
to win it.
It was mad. It was so frustrating. I think that's something that obviously we had so much love for Poch that didn't affect that really, but it was never something that sat right with Spurs fans. I think especially the FA Cup.
Yeah.
Like
That's not too small for any club.
Oh,
No,
mate,
nobody should turn
I
it
love-
down.
exactly.
love an
Especially if
FA
you're
Cup.
there.
Yeah,
I never understood that thing generally of like, I understand managers kind of promising things for goalkeepers and whatever, saying, no, you're going to be my cup goalkeeper.
Oh, that's bollocks.
Would you do it if it was the final? Probably not. So why would you do it if it's a semi-final?
Yeah.
I don't understand. I never understood.
And how bad Vorm was as well, or
he
you know,
was a calamity
Gazaniga
for
as
us for a
well.
lot, like
So,
a
you
long
know,
time. Like, it's just an absolute calamity.
yeah.
But,
Yeah, if the drop-off's that big, you've probably got to step up, right?
Yeah.
Do you blame a little bit on the squad depth there, though? Is that just poor recruitment as well? Like, not having a better
That's the
option
thing.
to
Like,
come
we
in?
were,
Daniel Levy.
This is why I think when you can kind of look at this era as like right team, wrong time a little bit,
Yeah.
because I do think to be fair to Levy and the club, we were hamstrung financially by building a £1 billion stadium that then the finances of that continue to rise. Obviously the delays, inflation, Brexit, whatever, right, kind of made that more expensive than it was supposed to be. And naturally, like you have to sacrifice if you want to do that to build a stadium now where you've got the PSR buffer that Tottenham actually do have. Like, if someone was to come into Tottenham now and pump some money in, we'd be able to spend a hell of a lot of money and really build a squad to properly compete. So, and the reality is that we're still not doing that. We're letting ourselves down now, but hopefully over time we'll reap the benefits of that, which makes this kind of era more heartbreaking, because I think that if he had the backing that, to be fair to the club, they probably couldn't give Pochettino what he wanted. Yeah. But also it just went stale because of that. So it was kind of right team, wrong time. It just didn't all marry up off the pitch and on the pitch, really. Yeah. And I think one thing that's always been frustrating with Spurs fans is that obviously we love being built around young players. We love kind of bringing these guys in and developing them. But it almost felt like it was that shouldn't be the recruitment model consistently. You have to add in Premier League proven quality or proven quality from outside that to allow these players to grow and allow them to not burn out and allow them to have some proper competition. So we didn't do that enough during that period, and we're arguably not doing that still now. So there's just it never really. I feel like we miss out on so many kind of big moments with Spurs just because of that on the pitch with the manager and the squad don't marry up with the ambitions off the pitch, even though the club are consistently coming out and saying we want to win the Premier League and the Champions League. That doesn't make sense. So I think it was frustrating, but there's so many factors kind of involved in it. I think it's just right team, wrong time for a lot of it, really.
Okay, so moving on to the 18-19 season. The obvious is the Champions League run.
Yes.
Is there anything else to touch on in that season of any merit or note? Or is it just all about the Champions League for you guys and thinking about it?
Not of note, but like not in a good way, because we declined massively in the league.
Yeah,
really.
we
finished
were
fourth
poor
by the
that
skin of our
season.
teeth, really. We really nearly fumbled it. We had quite a few injuries. It was quite obvious that it was going a little bit stale.
Dele Alli, that was the start of the decline for Dele. That season, I'd say the 18-19 season.
Struggled
It was that
fitness-wise.
Champions League run massively patched over what was happening with Pochettino's projects, like in the league and stuff. And I mean, even the Champions League run, like in the group stages, we were so close to being knocked out, and it took, last minute goals against PSV. Obviously the Barcelona one, 1-1. The Spurs fans were waiting up in the gods at Barcelona, waiting on another result for if we went through, and obviously we ended up going through. And then so many, like the Ajax game. I mean, we got battered.
It's surely the most stressful run to a Champions League final that a team has
it was
ever
the best,
had.
but the most stressful run.
You had. So in the group, Inter and Barca in your group is
Barca
tough.
played us off the park.
Well,
it was genuinely like we played actually okay, but it was like
that was
almost
that messy,
mesmerising.
You kind of hold your hands up and go, fair enough.
Yeah.
Like they were amazing.
One of his
in that
best
game.
ever games. That I think, like, what did he score? 2 goals and an assist in that game.
Rakitic
That
scored
dummy.
that
Yeah,
Oh,
that volley. Yeah. So you had 1 point from the first 3 games,
yeah.
and then still ended up going through because you won 2 and then drew
Yeah.
1.
Yeah, Kane scored a last-minute header against PSV.
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
turned it
Should have
around.
never gone in either.
And then you beat Inter, and then last minute or
Yeah.
85th minute, Lucas Moura equaliser, and then Inter then drew with PSV.
Yeah.
Did you? And then you and Barca went through.
Yeah.
Is that right? Okay.
Yeah.
And then round of 16, pretty low key, 4-0 win against Dortmund. And also that was a
We
decent
were
Dortmund
so
team.
good. We
They
were so
came
good.
they came second in the well, they always come second in the Bundesliga, but they only lost the league by I think 2 points to Bayern that
Yeah,
year. So
yeah.
it was they were no
Interesting.
slouches.
That was my other shout for favourite game that meant nothing, was the 3-0 against Dortmund at Wembley.
Yeah.
Jan Vertonghen's
Oh, my
game.
God.
I mean, Serge Aurier's cross for Vertonghen in that game, the Superman celebration. Like, that was one of the best nights that we had at Wembley, I think. And then going away, beating them 1-0 away from home. Like, because we were still, like, Spurs fans naturally are still nervous. Like, going away, we were like, oh my God,
Yeah.
you never know what's going to happen. And won it
Prime Jadon
1-0.
Sancho.
Yeah. We played Dortmund quite a lot during that era. We had them in the
did,
Champions
yeah.
League the year before. We
Yeah.
played them in the Europa League a couple of seasons before that
Yeah.
as well. The thing is about this run, which ultimately led up to us losing the Champions League final in the most heartbreaking fashion, is that it was actually the most un-Spursy run because we were so lucky. Like, in a lot of the games we were actually very lucky. Like City away, Llorente kind of got away with it a little bit with that handball.
Never
It was like debatable. Then the Sterling goal that was offside. It wasn't Tottenham. It wasn't.
Yeah.
And we did it again without Harry Kane. Harry Kane got injured in that first leg against City after clattering into.
Yeah.
I can't remember who it
He
was.
slid off
kind
the
of did it
touchline,
himself.
yeah.
Like.
Yeah.
So it was very un-Tottenham-like to do it in the manner that we did.
So the quarterfinal against City, that was in the new Spurs Stadium, wasn't it?
Yes.
You won
First
1-0.
Champions League game there.
That was the Sonny game where he was shouting down the camera, do you
Yeah.
know who I am? To Pep, because Pep
Yeah.
said it was the Kane team before that game.
I didn't
Yeah.
know that.
Yeah.
Was that before you became City's ultimate bogey team? Or was that kind of
It was kind of around
the
because
start.
I mean, we beat them 4-1 in Pep's first season at White Hart
Yes.
Lane.
But that
Yeah.
game, I think that
17,
game
but-
kicked it off.
Yeah,
I
that was
think
the real
tie
start of
kicked
it.
off because again
Yeah.
we were like I said, I think their kind of vengeance against us started around them because we were
Yeah.
really lucky to
Yeah.
go through in that second leg.
That's
Lucky.
the second leg. I remember I was working at a pub that night, and I was like, "Oh, hopefully nothing will happen in the City Spurs game." Check the score. It was 2-2 after like 10 minutes.
Yeah,
I was
it was
like,
nuts.
what is
Sterling
going
scored in
on?
like the first minute of the game. Son
Yeah.
scored a
That
brace
Bernardo
like straight
Silva
away to turn
goal.
it around.
That was one of the worst goals we've ever conceded. Like, it was terrible. But
Yeah, you're 3-2 down after 20 minutes.
Yeah.
But you're still going through at that point because
Yeah.
away goals
goals.
was a thing.
Yeah.
yeah,
Then did Aguero then make it 4-2 on
Yeah.
aggregate?
Yeah.
lovely finish.
Oh no, 4-2 on the night.
Yeah.
Then the Llorente.
The Llorente
Handball.
handball
Came
/ hip.
And that was the first season of VAR, I think, in the Champions
Yeah.
League.
Yeah.
And no one had really, now people score a last minute goal. It's maybe in the back of your mind, or VAR.
Yeah.
That just wasn't a thing.
No.
Like,
No.
people,
No.
it was inconceivable that goal was going to be disallowed in anyone's head.
And
then,
it shouldn't. I'm glad it did it.
It was offside,
I
he was
still,
offside.
No, but as in the Llorente goal, I
right,
still
that
think
one.
that goal should have stood.
They looked at it for ages, didn't they?
Do you know what the funny thing about it was as well? Like, you know how nowadays, like you saw it with Anthony Gordon on Monday night. As soon as the referee is going over to the monitor,
Yeah.
they're going to disallow it.
Yeah.
They told the referee to go and look at it. The referee looked at it for like 2 minutes,
Yeah.
and then I remember he just walked away and was like, "What am I looking at?" kind of thing, and gave the goal. It was so. And again, like you said,
Yeah.
we didn't. That wasn't in the back of our minds either. That nowadays, 99.9% of the time, if they go over to the screen,
it's
it's
over,
It's
yeah.
over.
Yeah,
So it was a bit of I mean, that night was amazing.
Yeah.
Like, it was
Yeah.
hilarious to kind of do
It
it
was
in that
insane.
manner. And then, like I said, it was very. The whole thing about this run is that it was so un-Tottenham, and of course
Yeah.
that then surmounted on us losing it in the worst
Yeah.
manner possible because our
Yeah.
luck had kind of run out.
Exactly.
And I keep saying luck. I'm not trying to put down, like, we fought again that City game. We fought really hard. Like, Wanyama was a player that massively kind of fell off for us in terms of fitness, but he put in such a monumental effort.
Yeah,
Musa Sissoko kind of became like a cult hero for Spurs.
yeah,
like
he's
around
so good
this
that
period.
season.
Like, put in such a big effort in that game. Like, City were just better than us, and we had a lot of players missing around that time. But we did ride our luck, like we just did.
It would have been the most Spurs way to lose it as well. Ericsson giving away the ball in the last minute in the most sloppy fashion, which he never really did.
No.
And then, like offside by like a toenail.
Yeah,
the Pep just falling to his
Yeah,
knees
yeah.
on the touchline. It's one of
It's the
the-
best
absolute
gif ever,
cinema.
mate. I love
So-
that
Yeah,
gif.
yeah.
It's great.
And then the semi-final versus Ajax, like that. I mean, that Ajax team was so likable.
Unbelievable.
was.
Yeah. I mean, I remember that week of football because it was also Liverpool Barcelona.
Yeah,
best
back
week
to
of
back.
best
it
week
was
of
just
football of all time.
Yeah,
unrivaled.
I
Like, it's
completely
never
agree.
going to get better, is it? Yeah, talk to us about it.
I was really worried after the first leg. Because obviously we lost 1-0. Donny van der Beek scored,
Yeah,
and we
about 8
weren't
minutes
great in that first leg at all. And you could just tell the quality that Ajax side had.
Yeah.
And then go into their ground. Obviously, we went 2-0 down. Hakim Ziyech was just running riot. Like they were again. Dusan Tadic. Like at that point. I mean, me and Ben spoke about this the other day.
Yeah.
At half time, we were like, just give it a go in the second half. Like, we're out. Like, there's no way.
Yeah.
Even after we got back to 2-2, Ziyech hit the post again. Like, they were still dominating us.
Yeah, the tide massively turned in the second half. Like, we were all over them for the first half an hour.
You scored 2 quite quick goals, didn't you? In the
Yeah,
start?
scored, yeah. And that was classic Onana.
It really was.
Yeah. Nicked it back and.
Llorente should have scored right before that, though.
He scored it missed from like 2 yards out. We had chances in the first half as well. I remember Son hit the post.
Yeah.
Like, we had a few moments, but yeah, Seb's right. Like, we literally spoke about this yesterday. As soon as when we went 2-0 down, it was like, oh well, it was always going to kind of happen eventually.
Yeah.
It is what it is.
Yeah.
I remember I was in the Beehive pub in Tottenham, the same place I watched the quarterfinal. It was like, let's just go and get a drink and we'll just kind of forget about it. And then it's like second half, you're like, all right, let's not embarrass ourselves here.
Yeah.
Got back into the game and it was like, oh my god, like we could actually do this because we were all over them, absolutely all over them, and then we rode our luck. But to do it again, like I keep saying, like the way that we did it was so un-Tottenham like. It was just to score the last kick of the game with like a buzzer beater, Lucas Moura. There's this amazing video of these Ajax fans watching it in a bar in Amsterdam or wherever they are, and they're literally like, there's all these people at the back of the bar like counting like 10, 9, and literally Moura scores, and it just descends into silence. It's amazing. It's like the fact that we were going around doing that to teams, the sort of heartbreak that we would suffer along the way. Like, we'd always be the unlucky ones. Like,
so once in a lifetime,
never the bride, and then it was like, we're just, sorry. Like we're kind of like we've changed the narrative a bit, but
you must have felt after that. This is happening for us.
It was.
I mean, how did you feel Liverpool in the final going into it? Before we get into the game, was there just a feeling in the for Spurs that this is just
I don't know. I kind of felt like it was amazing to go out there, and I kind of travelling there like with all the people that you go to Spurs with every week. It was like it was a special thing to be involved in. And I kind of feel like maybe that seeped into the whole fan base a little bit. But it was almost a bit like a free hit, almost, like, in a way. Obviously, there was the kind of lead up to the game in terms of Kane's fitness. Will he, won't he play? Will he, won't he? We might not have him.
That dominated the narrative.
Yeah, and it was like, it almost felt like a little bit, because of the way that we'd almost got there as well, it was like, like that is, it could be written in the stars for us. It could be destiny, the way that we've got here. But also, it kind of felt like a bit of a free hit, unlike obviously the Europa League final this season was like, we have to win this. Whereas like that was almost like Liverpool was so good under Klopp. They got to the Champions League final the year before. They pushed City so close in the league that year.
Team.
It was like, let's see what happens.
I fully expected us to lose that game. Like going into it, it was just the way that we lost it. The handball.
Was it handball?
No, and I was still maintaining to this day that it was a disgraceful decision.
Yeah.
30 seconds in.
It was clever from Mane.
Yeah,
but it was absolutely disgraceful. Like,
what horrid way to win a penalty.
Yeah, because he obviously is just he tries to kick it into Sissoko's
Yeah.
arm.
The thing is, the worst thing about it, I think, for me, is that like that's true. But it doesn't even hit him here.
Yeah,
it hits him like there.
Yeah,
and it rolls
like,
down.
How on earth is that handball? And it's like Spurs have had it so many times, and woes me about refereeing decisions and blah 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 blah. But I can list you at least 5 examples where rules have changed off the back of something happening to Spurs. It's like, I know, like, you could probably do the same thing as well, and every fan has their moments, but it was just a disgrace. Like,
it was,
absolute
it really
disgrace.
was.
But and again, it was a weird game. Like we were. No, neither team were great. It was a bit of a horrible cage
people
final, but we
forget
had chances.
We had like 65% possession. We had
like,
so much of the ball.
Should Kane have started the game? Because obviously he replaced Lucas Moura.
Well, actually,
yes, he should have started.
I'd say that Dele Alli should have been the one that didn't start that game. I've always said it should have been Moura on the right, Eriksen in the 10, Sonny on the left, Kane up top. Dele Alli at that time just wasn't it.
Yeah.
He was struggling like massively in the league. And Kane, if Kane is any part fit, he should play.
Yeah.
But Moura had to play that.
Yeah,
he had to play that game.
And
I mean, you saw Moura at full time, like just breaking down. Like I remember, like there were videos of him coming out after the game, of, like his family, like just crying, and it was like that was meant to be. He got us there single-handedly, essentially.
And he scored that group stage goal as well, didn't he? Yeah.
And people always say Kane was the worst player on the pitch. Dele Alli was the worst player on the pitch in that final, I thought. I mean, it's harsh, right? It's Champions League final, his first Champions League final, but
it wasn't like you got battered. Like,
no.
It was Liverpool basically had like 2 clear-cut chances.
And Van Dijk was the best defender in the world.
That's the thing. It was like that was.
There was a moment where it looked like Son was about to run through 1-on-1 with like 15 minutes to go, and Van Dijk just came across and like made this amazing tackle. because we were knocking on the door and we were getting closer and closer and closer, but they just never. We didn't have a properly big chance where it felt like that was our moment. We were getting there, but the game's a bit of a blur, to be honest. Like,
I don't really remember much of it.
No.
Never watched it back. Never ever watched it back.
Yeah, I probably wouldn't either.
No.
So after that, how did it feel going into the next season? I mean, you've lost the biggest game in recent history. It would have been, I know that you said it was a free hit, but it would have been very special to have won that Champions League. You would have obviously had it over Arsenal. It just would have been a massive thing for Spurs to get the monkey off the back and it to be the Champions League.
It
would have just been incredible. There's no response ever, is that? But then you're moving into the 2019-2020 season. And obviously got off to a really poor start. I remember the 7-2 loss to Bayern in the Champions League.
We played well that day. It was so bizarre.
It was a really weird game.
We
all over them in the first half.
We had more XG than them in that game. Not to get all nerdy, but we played well in that game. I know a lot of it was the penalty. But Serge Gnabry just turned into prime Messi in that game, really. And obviously the whole Arsenal part of it, him posting London is red afterwards, that was really fun. But I don't know about you. I feel like in the back of my head I knew going into that season that obviously again we'd made no signings that summer. I just felt like it was all going a little bit, and I still had confidence because Kane, Eriksen, all those boys
that
are
summer
still
we
there.
signed. That was the summer we signed in Ndombele.
Oh yeah,
Celso, Sessegnon.
Summer before.
So it was it felt like we were giving it a go.
Yeah,
the one that broke our hearts was Dybala. If we'd have signed Dybala, it would have been. I think things could have been a bit.
So what happened? Why did you not sign
image rights?
What does that?
Daniel Levy wouldn't pay an extra £3.2 million or around that figure to pay for Dybala's image rights to come to Spurs, and then the deal just fell through.
Fell through on deadline day as well. It was just
that was the biggest heartbreak I've experienced transfer wise. I can't
What about Barry
had to bring it up at some point.
That'll be the first and last time.
I genuinely couldn't tell you what was worse. Eze was probably worse.
But Dybala, that's like no disrespect to Eze, but Dybala's on a different level to Eze. He was one of the best. Well, maybe not best.
We tried to sign Bruno Fernandes as well, actually.
Really?
Yeah, because Eriksen kind of made a lot of noises after the Champions League final that he wanted a new challenge, and it was we signed Ndombele. Eriksen kind of stopped playing. And then Ndombele hit the ground running. He was quite good at the start, and then
he scored his
Villa, great goal as well. And he should have been. I've always said it about Ndombele. He's the most talented player, on the ball. I know it's a bit like Jeremy Lynch, but the most talented player on the ball that I've ever seen at Spurs. In terms of natural just ability.
It's a joke.
He was silly. He should have been one of the best midfielders in the world. That's the ceiling that he should have reached. And we were so excited about him. After those first couple of games, it felt like a massive signing. Liverpool were interested in him. I remember so many Barcelona were really interested in him, and we got him. As well. Yeah, and he was one of the biggest talents coming out of France. There was loads of talk around him. So actually, that summer, Sessegnon was balling out for Fulham. So
that was a good signing.
That summer we were.
Yeah, I like such a Spurs kind of signing. We've been linked with him for ages. I think as well, to kind of Poch, you could feel was getting a bit angsty that summer. We obviously did bring in a few players. We brought in Celso and Ndombele, etc. But he did quite a lot of press conferences when he was away when we were on
the Gary Lineker one?
He did the interview with Gary Lineker where he kind of said it's all, when we moved into the new stadium, it's all well and good having a lovely house, but you've got to have the furniture to go in it. So there was a lot of kind of hints towards the board being we really got to kick on now. There's no point moving here, because I remember there's this infamous tweet that Spurs put out after the Champions League final where it was a picture of the team photo, and it was and every Spurs fan bought into it and felt it at the time. It was this is just the start. We're really proud. We gave it a go, all that kind of thing. It's just this is a new beginning kind of thing going into the new stadium, and it's just never really we've never really lived up to that. I guess we've kind of always flirted with it and dipped our toe in. And like I said, we spent money that summer, obviously, but we just didn't ever really do enough to give Pochettino the kind of fall back in that he deserved, and then it all kind of just came crashing down, really.
Yeah. It really did.
Well, you mentioned Sessegnon, you unlocked a core memory for me. When we beat Derby season 4 in the semi-final of the playoffs.
Scored the winner, didn't he?
I grabbed him. It's on Sky cameras, and I was just like, you can now go to Spurs. Get us past Villa. Literally, he was like, all right.
Looking back on the Pochettino era,
obviously
got sacked, Mourinho comes in, and Amazon Prime documented the whole thing for the world to see.
Most leady thing ever.
Do you think Spurs overachieved with Pochettino?
Yeah, for the most part.
Ooh.
Yeah, I think we did.
Overachieved.
I definitely think at White Hart Lane, those few seasons and first season at Wembley, I think we definitely did.
At the time, it felt like we did. I think in hindsight, looking at the team, we should have won something.
I think Pochettino overachieved with Tottenham.
Yeah.
Tottenham underachieved with Pochettino.
That's a great
if
way
that
to sum
makes
it up.
sense.
I like that.
Yeah,
Like, I think
that's
he like I said, it's a bit like I think what Thomas Frank is kind of trying to do now a little bit. Like he made us greater than the sum of our parts and like built this really strong, young, energetic team. That we had some great players, don't get me wrong, but I think he overachieved with them and took them to a level where we didn't necessarily expect them to go. But then he never really got the backing that he deserved to actually kick on from that, using those players as a platform. So I would say he overachieved, but maybe the club underachieved with him there, I think.
If I was to ask you one thing that stopped you from winning the trophy, what's the one thing that would have took Spurs' Poch to the next level? Would it be? I mean, you give it options. It could be signings. It could be a one-off moment. I mean, what is it for you that you think really held back?
If I could take back one moment, it would be the Champions League final penalty. But signings would have been the thing for me. In terms of having that proper back in, having a fuller squad so that we could have maybe competed for an FA Cup, or when we had our injury issues with our bigger players, having better replacements for them. I think it would have been.
But do you think that was just impossible with the stadium? Like, I know as football fans we don't want to talk finance, but do you think now looking at it, it's like
it's really complicated with the finances with the stadium. So a lot of it's like debt that we still haven't paid off and stuff. I don't really know how it works.
Daniel Levy's like negotiated the most manageable bank loan with literally the Bank of England.
Literally.
It doesn't really affect us at all in terms of the stadium repayments.
We couldn't have spent like £200 million a summer, but we could have spent more than we did during that time.
Exactly. Play for 18 months.
Exactly.
Does last season winning the Europa League top any and all of Poch's seasons in terms of enjoyment?
Absolutely not.
Oh,
sorry. When you said enjoyment, no.
Yeah, no, it was horrible. In Spurs last season, we were diabolical. Like going to when you're going every single week as a season ticket holder,
losing to Ipswich, Leicester.
I said that I went to Palace Spurs last year at Spurs Stadium, and Spurs were the worst team we played last year by an absolute mile.
Awful.
And I watched us play Southampton.
That single night is the greatest night of my life. And
the days that followed as well were just like the parade, and those were the days.
But until, like that 16-17 season, like you were on such a high for the entire thing, but until the end, obviously. But even when we didn't win the title, it still felt like an amazing thing. The final day at White Hart Lane, pitch invasion. I don't think it did.
And how do you feel now about Pochettino? Obviously, he's been to Chelsea. Does it affect the legacy for you? Is the love still there? Is he welcome back?
It affected it at the time for me, I think.
Yeah.
I just because he spoke so much about Spurs is the only club for here, like the club of his heart. Like he spoke about Espanyol as well.
Yeah, he said like he'd never go to Barca.
I think that's the thing, because he always used to speak about that loyalty.
And it's because during Poch's era, we were sort of, our rivalry with Chelsea was so intense, almost more than Arsenal. It felt like a real kick in the teeth.
Yeah.
And it definitely affected my love for Poch. Like I still do love him.
Yeah.
I wouldn't have him back though now.
No, I think we kind of go through phases of Spurs, like around the time where And was first kind of getting talked about getting sacked, like in March. It was like
it's always
Pochettino supposed to be meeting with Daniel Levy and all this kind of stuff, and it's like I think you allow yourself to get sucked in a bit and go, "I'll go on then," but like actually,
I'm also not sure he's the top manager anymore.
Yeah,
he's managing the USMNT now, isn't he?
And they're not doing very well.
Exactly.
Gig.
But it has affected his legacy a little bit. But there's still a lot of love there. So
of course.
I don't think he should. I think he's welcome back. I just don't think Spurs should do it necessarily.
Yeah,
I think it's kind of both things can be true.
Yeah.